Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Gerber StrongArm utility knife. I call this a utility knife, even though it is intended as a combat knife. Obviously, there's monetization issues with talking about the former rather than the latter. And this is a layperson's knife review. I think I should do that anytime I do any reviews of knives. I'm a hand tool person, but knives are tools too, and that's kind of the perspective that I take. There's lots of top-notch knife reviewers on YouTube, and this knife right here, this Gerber StrongArm, I did pick up used. I only paid $25 for it, so I'm extremely happy. Normal online price seems to vary somewhere between $60 and $75 or so. And I actually think it's pretty good, even though it does have a few deficiencies. It is American made, and they do cheapen a couple of the manufacturing processes just to attempt to bring the cost down while still being domestically manufactured. This was a popular unit. Tons of YouTube reviews. Many of them, and actually I was satisfied, were just testing these super hard, using the back of the knife to physically smash apart cinder blocks, driving it in pretty far into pieces of wood and standing on it, hanging off of it, stabbing through ammo cans, and that's more than enough durability for me. Of course, it is a full Tang, although the Tang does get pretty thin on the inside. I was using a magnet, and it seems just to pull right in the middle portion here, not around the edge. And it does have a striking pommel. This is something that you might use to break glass, and it does have a hole drilled through lanyard hole, excuse me. Fiberglass reinforced nylon overmolded handle with a rubber grip, not a TPU grip. So it really has a lot of stiction. Really like the purchase on that. There's just a ton of grab, even on the smooth area. And then Gerber has come up with this, real aggressive kind of diamond plate pattern. And actually, I like that a lot. It has pretty good ergonomics and just really feels like it wants to stay in your hand. It feels like there's enough grip, or you could hold on to it just like this and be able to hang off of it if you needed to, and your hands wouldn't slide off. We do have a 3/16 inch thick blade, 1.187 inches. They do advertise 200 thousandths, but when I measured this one, it was 190 thousandths. So it's a 3/16 inch blade. They do advertise this as being a ceramic type coating. And that would be a type of aluminum, pretty heavy duty aluminum oxide coating that's like used on these Diablo saw blades. It's a little bit less than 5 inches long. From the upper portion, this high portion on the guard, you're looking at 4 7/8 and 4 15/16 or so if you're measuring right from this recessed area, so just under 5 inches. So it's a good size. Some people complain about it being a little bit lightweight, but I actually like that a lot. We can see if I can get it balanced. It appears to be balanced right in the center, which I am also just plenty happy about. And that's kind of the reason that I picked this up, is after seeing it used, and looking it up, just seeing some of the videos of how durable it is. This is exactly the type of thing I recommend as a sturdy camping knife. They have black versions, they have versions that have serrations, and versions without serrations. And it comes with a sheath that I think is just much more useful. I did not get, it has a nylon webbing, so you can, attach this to your leg or something along those lines, but I do not have that. But it does come with this kind of tactical nylon injection molded sheath, which I really like. It has this strong detent that fits into these little slots here. I found that those slots are actually pretty nice, because if you're, say, opening some barbecue briquettes or something, it's a really nice place to turn it sideways and then give a nice resting spot for your thumb, so you still have good purchase whether you're holding it this way or sideways. And I actually kind of discovered that accidentally, but I do like that feature. A lot of comments online do talk about the grind, and that is where Gerber is trying to save money, is just saying, if you want a razor edge, go ahead and sharpen it after you get it. We're going to put on a primary edge that's utilitarian, but certainly isn't as sharp as what this 420 high carbon stainless steel is capable of. And the balance of the grind is not particularly great. Let me get some zooming function in. The actual steel itself is very straight. That's very good. But if we start looking, what we can see here is, if we look at this V-groove here, it just isn't quite perfectly centered right there. If we look down here, we can also see the difference how that curve doesn't match up with that one, so that the whole edge of the blade isn't perfectly centered in the body of the steel. To make that more perfectly centered, you gotta, it's just a bit more expensive. It's a bit more work to make sure all the equipment is lined up. They're using the grinding machine for a variety of different blades, so setting it up for each specific blade you're putting through is a lot of extra labor costs. And so when you're in a high labor country like the United States, they try to do their best to figure out ways where they can save costs, such as maybe not having the most balanced grind. This one is off, but I've seen a couple photos online where they were pretty bad on some of these Gerbers, and I just swap it out for another one. Of course, you do get a lifetime warranty. It's a standard materials and workmanship warranty, so if you snap it in half, they may or may not replace it. If you just totally beat the tar out of the edge of the blade, no, they aren't going to swap that out. If the handle cracks apart and falls off, yeah, they will replace that. And I should get just another up-close look at the grind. That, surprisingly enough, the serrations look okay, but they're using a pretty coarse grinding wheel, which leaves a rougher edge, but is, of course, much faster when they're doing the grinding operations. But it's okay. But it's the actual blade edge, which just isn't so great. You can see just by the edge where the grinding is. This is definitely a factory edge. This has never been touched, and you can just see that it's kind of coarse. If we bring it over, I don't know if I can get you can just see where the light kind of glints off the edge. I've been very careful with this since I purchased it, and it's just obvious that edge is not going to shave hair off your arm. That's actually, to tell you the truth, it's surprisingly dull. I can actually do this, which is obviously never recommended on a knife. But if you have a razor sharp knife, you're not running your finger across the edge of it like that, even softly. Otherwise, I still think this is great. I really like the idea of a knife that's right around $50. It's a little over $50, but that, really tickles a lot of my fancies. It kind of reminds me of something like an old SK breaker bar, where it may not have just the finest finish. There may be a couple areas where you could nitpick, maybe where they're grinding, but it has it where it counts. It's something that you can bank on. The edge isn't going to be the greatest, but if you're prying at stuff and trying to get something done, you can really count on something like this actually not failing on you. There were some comments about this case. I do like how it fits in. I like how solid that is. I like that it has little thumb pushers that you can pull out just like that, so it makes it safe to safe and easy both to remove and install. And of course, you can put it in either direction, so I like that a lot. And really, that's part of the selling point, I think, of this, is because it is a nice heavy-duty sheath. It will come with some nylon webbing, but it just is so compatible. You just have all these holes for paracord. You have strap slots there. You have this mount, which is really good. It allows you to mount it horizontally on your belt, and I think that's a really big deal. And actually, let me show you something on this. This can actually be removed. You have a couple there's a slide-through clip. You just push the tangs, and you pull this out, and then this pole pops off, and then you can put this on any kind of actual tactical gear. It's called the Molly system. It's a particular standard in spacing, and you can attach it to that system and then use this to go down through and keep it physically secured. There has been a few comments about people having some issues in some situations of this clip working itself out. Since I'm somebody who's primarily going to use this on my belt, what I realize is if you don't want it to fall out, you can actually get it in here like this and snap it in like that, and it really won't fall out. It's going to be extremely difficult for this thing to get unclipped, push, and then it has to make it past that bend to entirely work itself out. So if you just put the clip in this way, and surprisingly enough, it almost seems like it's made to do that, the dimensions work, you'll never have a problem with this secondary piece falling off and that clip working its way out. And you tend to get more value out of a fixed blade. Like here's this knife. A lot of people kind of criticized me on my review, but I think it was just fine on the CRKT home front field serviceable knife. It has a 3.5-inch blade, and this thing's around $100. And I think for $100, if you don't need something that's folding that you can put in your pocket, this would be a great option. I mean, the best competition, really, to tell you the truth, is if you go to Home Depot and get like this Milwaukee 4-inch tradesman knife. It's actually, for the price, 20 bucks. Really a surprisingly good knife. Really not too bad. And I think for what is essentially 3 times the price of that Milwaukee, you get an American-made knife with a really heavy-duty blade, a decent grade of steel, and actually a surprisingly good sheath, which absolutely shames this little thing with that the Milwaukee comes with. So anyway, I'm going to kind of leave my table review there, but I did want to kind of add a table review because it seems that pretty much all the reviews of these knives are obviously from experts and from their perspective, whether it's, military or utilitarian. And I kind of wanted to do more of a layperson's review. If you're, a tool person and you just want a nice knife that you can rely on for camping, there's just so many choices. But it really seems I like something like this because it's actually pretty lightweight, not bad to hike with at all, but still just offers a ton of physical durability. It did chip the edge of the blade if you hammer it against rocks or cinder blocks, but it doesn't cause big sections to carve out or anything like that. And to be able to stand on it and actually see it take a bunch of sideways forces, going through really hard materials with the tip, and that's something I do appreciate. That is, you can see the grind, the tip is super strong. I don't think many people would be too dissatisfied. Just know that when you buy this, I'd probably recommend not getting the serrations because they're impossible to sharpen unless you want to delicately deal with it. And the fact that you're going to have to take the primary edge and, touch it up yourself when you receive it. And just know that that's the reason it's not $80 or something. And I kind of approve of what Gerber has done with this. For a $60 or $70 knife, American made, I actually think that's just absolutely fine. It really has it where it counts, especially with a nice, intelligently designed sheath, and just something that you can once again bank on. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.